This is Ukradowski of WeAreChange.org, joined today by the one and only Shaun Attwood, who's going to be giving us a very interesting perspective on Jeffrey Epstein from his own personal experiences in jail and, of course, also his investigations. We're also going to be talking about an alleged police officer with some videotapes of Prince Andrew. We're going to get to that at the end of this video. But before we start, Shaun, first, I have to say thank you so much for being on this show. Jeff Berwick told me about you just a few days ago, and then for some reason, I was just getting an onslaught of messages on YouTube. Like, you have to interview Shaun Attwood. Where's Shaun? Why are you interviewing Shaun? Where's the video with Shaun Attwood? And then I remember just, seeing your channel. You have an incredible, amazing story. I'm still binge watching some of your videos. I'm watching the particular video that is just absolutely mind-boggling about Jamie Morgan Kane. Just a similar story to yours about just how crazy life could get. And really, really just incredible stuff. So it's really great to have you on. And I wanted to, first of all, ask you, how are you receiving everything from all these latest Jeffrey Epstein dumps, all the latest information that's coming out? We just had the brother come out and says that there's unexplained injuries to Jeffrey Epstein's wrist and shoulders. What do you make of all this latest information from all the work that you're doing in this particular field?
All right, well, thanks for having me on. And congratulations on the Epstein pedophile island invasion, Luke. That was tremendous journalism. I got so many messages from people when that went up as well. Likewise, encouraging that this moment actually happened. So you've been involved in Epstein for years. On my YouTube channel, I've got a prison questions playlist, and I respond to what the viewers request. And then they all started asking about Epstein after he got arrested. So that's when I first started to post videos on him. But I've been researching and writing about the Clinton crime family and the Bush crime family for years. So I knew him being suicided had all the hallmarks of the Clintons. So you just brought up about the recent reports about the injuries. There was so much pressure put on his neck. They don't believe, the medical experts believe, that those 3 fractures could possibly have come about from a suicidal strangulation. And if you look at all the other anomalies around that time, the Metropolitan Correctional Center was opened in 1975. They have never had a report of 2 guards falling asleep simultaneously. And then, kudos to the Marine that was on the news the other day. At the end of his interview, he just added, and we know Epstein didn't kill himself. So I think nearly everybody in the world, the majority of people that have got brain cells and aren't paying attention to ABC News, I believe they understand that, there was foul play involved, definitely.
I mean, there's no way not to conclude foul play with all the coincidences that are happening. And if anybody thinks that this was a suicide, they seriously need to have their head examined in many different ways, because all the evidence suggests to the complete opposite of that. And again, it takes people like you, it takes people like us, it takes independent investigators, independent reporters who work for the people and not for special interests like ABC who bury the story, to really start going after and fighting these insane criminal elements in our society that are extremely disgusting, extremely vicious, and do acts that normal people can't even conceive the possibility of. So I commend you for the work you've been doing. I mean, you've been providing a lot of insight. What would you say was some of the most interesting things you found out from your personal investigations into Jeffrey Epstein?
Okay, so on my Epstein playlist, I'm posting an Epstein video every single day. The way I approach a subject is I go through it slowly and methodically, and I've been doing that with the police reports. But one of the things that we discussed before this that perhaps might be the most interest to your viewers was in the UK, a Florida cop, an ex-Florida cop, they started to report him in the headlines of the tabloids over here. Now, his name is John Mark Dougan. He had to leave the country in a hurry, and he is in Russia. And I've interviewed him a couple of times on the channel. So John Mark Dougan was a Florida cop back when the first Epstein investigation was underway. And one of the lead investigators was Joe Recurry, who years later died mysteriously. He was only in his early 50s, and people are quite puzzled about that. But Joe Recurry did not trust his superiors in the Florida Police Department. He thought there was going to be some kind of cover up. So he handed a lot of his files and video evidence to John Mark Dougan. Now, why would he do that? John Mark Dougan was known as someone who went by the book. He was exposing corruption, exposing racism. And I've read his book, and he, from childhood, he's always been out to support the underdog. So Joe Recurry could tell that John Mark Dougan was an ethical person. Now, a massive amount of files were given to John Mark Dougan, not just Epstein, but all kinds of cases involving the Florida police. And it was only in recent months that the irrelevancy of what he possessed was reported in the news. Now, John Mark Dougan himself, he didn't want any attention on this at all. It blew up in the news in the UK, and he believes that it did so because MI6 leaked it to the media. Now, he also believes that the FBI gave the files to MI6 because he said his property was raided, his computers were cleaned out, so the FBI has all of the files as well. Now, some people have said, okay, he's just trying to jump on this headline to capitalize on it. So for one, he never started it. And for two, people have said that he's probably not even got any video files. So coincidentally, at the time this was blowing up in the UK tabloids, a friend of mine who I've worked with for years, because we've both written extensively books on the Colombian cocaine mafia, the Cali cartel, and Pablo Escobar, his name's Ron Chepsyuk. He was in Russia at this point in time when it was blown up in the news. So he went over and visited John Mark Dougan, and they watched some of the sex tapes. Now, they said it was so nauseating that they couldn't watch much of it. And obviously, Ron couldn't bring any of that back to the US because then he would have been trafficking child porn. He would have been opened up for, prosecution himself. But he did confirm that these were sex tapes filmed in Epstein's properties that were seized by the dead cop Joe Recurry and are now in the hands of John Mark Dougan in Russia. They also said they recognized famous people, but they did not say who those people were.
Yeah, it's incredible the level of silence from the people that people entrust the most about these particular cases. The authorities, the mainstream media, all of them are just completely silent. I just looked up the particular officer's name that you just mentioned. There's a New York Post article here saying ex-Florida cop accuses FBI of covering up Prince Andrew's role in Jeffrey Epstein's scandal. And honestly, if you look at the FBI's involvement in the Jeffrey Epstein case, they have failed time and time again for close to over a decade now to do their job. So that accusation, just with that headline, absolutely true. Now, with these videotapes, I think that's a big possibility that there could be something like this since, as we know, Virginia Roberts and also this ABC anchor and also, of course, many other individuals claim that Epstein was running a blackmail extortion racket for an intelligence agency. What do you make of those kind of accusations coming from Virginia Roberts, this ABC anchor who was caught on live mic saying that he was doing this? What do you think was really happening behind the scenes? Because a lot of people have their different speculations, but I'm curious from your investigations, do you see it that way or do you see it differently?
So these sexual blackmail operations in the intelligence community have been going on for decades. If you go back to William Barr, when he was in the CIA, he was a legal guy. And there were certain committees that were set up to investigate the sexual blackmail operations. I think the Pike Committee was what one of them was called. And he actually obstructed that. So the CIA are up to the necks in the Epstein situation. I interviewed David Icke, and he believes that the Mossad were involved in this quite extensively because of Epstein's ties to Israel and his ties to the Maxwell family. Now, as a kid growing up in England, I saw Robert Maxwell all over the news. He was this big time, flamboyant, aggressive media tycoon. He was Rupert Murdoch's main competitor. And then all of a sudden, he pilfered the Daily Mirror, which was the tabloid he had purchased, I believe, with Mossad money. He pilfered the pension fund, and then he was suddenly found dead by the Canary Islands, I believe, off his yacht, which was called the Lady Ghislaine. So it's speculation, but there is a possibility that he bought the Mirror with Mossad money and he defaulted and on the intelligence community, and he pilfered this money to try and pay them back. So he created this huge financial calamity, and they took him out. So if you look at the Maxwell family, you know, they're so deep in intelligence agency, not just like blackmail operations, but also software with backdoor stuff embedded in it. And for Ghislaine Maxwell to be Epstein's, right-hand woman, it just reeks that there was a blackmail operation going. And if you look at all of the witness statements, I've been methodically going through the police reports and going through the witness statements, and the victims say over and over that they believe that Epstein was trafficking these kids into these sex acts with people like Prince Andrew, people like Bill Clinton, so that he could have power over them, so that he could control them, so he would have leverage. And even, anyone who spoke to the victims, even the woman on ABC, she even blurted out that it was a blackmail operation, that she felt that wholeheartedly after speaking to the victims. So there are multiple strands to the criminal enterprise, and I think that the blackmail operation is a huge one.
Yep, and direct correlations with the Mossad, with the CIA, especially with the Maxwell family that has severe ties with it. I mean, this is not the first time that intelligence agencies have interconnected webs to, of course, entertainment, into media. This is why also we're seeing such a protection racket from the mainstream media protecting a lot of vicious monsters, because they're all interconnected in many, many different ways. But we look at the mainstream media, how they treated the Harvey Weinstein case, the Kevin Spacey case, the Jeffrey Epstein case, the BBC presenter also connected to the royal family. His name escapes me. What was his name again?
Jimmy Savile.
Jimmy Savile. Yeah. You look at all those connections. All those people got away with their horrendous, horrible crimes because of the corporate conglomerate media keeping the story shut, keeping these monsters still running around doing whatever they wanted to do with the aiding and abetting of the mainstream media. So, obviously, intelligence is also connected to the mainstream media. The CIA here is very interconnected to Hollywood. When they tweet about the Black Panther, they're not just doing that out of fanfare. They're doing that because of big money, big agreements, big contracts that they have with each other. And also, Hollywood is a great way to subliminally push mind control. But Shaun, thank you so much for putting all of this to perspective. Another thing that really correlates a lot of this is because a lot of people also don't know where Jeffrey Epstein got his money. The sources of his wealth is unknown. People say he was a billionaire, and nobody on Wall Street can correlate trading with him or even working with him. So surrounded with a lot of mysteries. And to me, in my opinion, correct me if I'm wrong, the bigger truth of what Jeffrey Epstein died with is far more vicious than them being caught in this massive cover-up. So we can only imagine the real horrible crimes that they were up to. That's my take on it. Anything else you want to say about this particular case, Shaun?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few points that you've raised there. It's so big, this story in the UK, and certain media entities have had to keep it alive because of the Prince Andrew involvement. That's the biggest keyword in the country, is the royal family over here. So what we've seen is people are waking up to the royal family's involvement in paedophilia and child sex trafficking. But like you pointed out with Savile, this has been going on for decades as well, because Savile, I'm from the north of England, and Savile was just a low-level DJ, and he ended up being allowed into the top levels of the royal circles I read the book, Princess Di, in her own words. And when her and Charles were having problems, the royal family brought in Jimmy Savile to be their marriage guidance counselor.
Wow.
And this guy was a necrophiliac. This guy was molesting mental patients. He was molesting hospital patients. I mean, there's even videos of him on YouTube. He was at a program on the BBC. He was a massive TV star on the BBC when I was growing up. There was a program called Jim Will Fix It, where he arranged things for kids. But he also presented another show called Top of the Pops. And there's a video on YouTube where you can see him, he just puts his hand up a young girl's skirt and she jumps like this. So to get anywhere near the royal family, I know people who work in the media. And if, for example, if you're doing anything with them, like journalistically, you're not even allowed to talk to them. You got to send in your questions, and or if you're taking photos, blah blah blah. There's this old school thing where they don't, you can't, the lower level public can't just talk to the royal family. So for Jimmy Savile to be allowed that level of access, he would have been his background would have been thoroughly checked. Yep. By Scotland Yard, MI6, all these guys, and they would have known what he was doing. And it's the case that these paedophile groups, they do protect people, and they managed to protect Jimmy Savile until he died. Now, exactly the same thing happened with Epstein. When we saw the first Florida sweetheart deal, then that was because he had enough connections and leverage and power. His friends, they circled the wagons and protected him. But then the media picked it back up. The lady from the Miami Herald, she was really important in getting the momentum going of the public again. And we saw a change in the presidency over there. So they weren't able to protect him this time. So he had to be sacrificed because of the liability that he represented. And that's why he was suicided. But now Ghislaine Maxwell, Jean-Luc Brunel, they all present the same liability to this elite pedophile ring. So those guys will be next in line to get suicided as well, I believe.
Suicided or just escaped. I mean, the story is just absolutely mind-boggling. It reads out of a spy novel, multiplied 10 times in obscurity, because this is reality that we're dealing with. Sick, necrophiliac pedophiles that are protected by the police, by the royal family, and by the BBC. This is the truth, and this is Jimmy, Savile. He died a free man, and these people are still out there, and the bigger truths about this case are still unknown. So I thank you for your brave work that you do. Just like Virginia Roberts says, Prince Andrew should be in jail. And I think she is definitely right. And I really want to thank you for all the work that you do. I'm going to keep watching all your videos. They are absolutely fascinating. The link to them will be in the description below. So if people want to check out more about Shaun Attwood, particularly that video that I just can't stop watching. It's a 3-hour and 30-minute video. I really, really enjoy it. Your stories are absolutely incredible as well. Hopefully we could have you back on the show again, just talking about life, incredible life. I mean, you went to jail over what many scientists and psychiatrists now see as medicine for trauma. Really, really incredible individual. I want to thank you so much for taking some time and spending it here with us on We Are Change. Thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Appreciate that, Luke. And just to let your viewers know, also, I've got a new book coming out for Christmas. It's called Clinton, Bush, and CIA Conspiracies: From the Boys on the Tracks to Jeffrey Epstein. And it's available worldwide on Amazon.
Awesome. We're going to put that in the link in the description as well, and your website. Thank you so much, and thank you all you amazing human beings for supporting independent media. We wouldn't be here without you, and that's why I try to end every single broadcast by saying, love you guys. Stay tuned for more here on wearechange.org.